stop. If your heart feels heavy, your mind feels tired, and your soul needs peace, listen carefully. The prayer life of Jesus was never an accessory to his mission, but the very heartbeat of his life. The hidden place where his strength was renewed, his obedience was formed, and his trust in the Father was made unshakable, teaching us that prayer is not something we turn to only when life becomes difficult, but the place where we learn how to live faithfully in every season. Again and again, the Gospels show Jesus stepping away from the noise of crowds, miracles, expectations, and even good and holy work, choosing solitude so his heart could remain aligned with God, reminding us that intimacy with the Father must always come before productivity for people, because even righteous work can become draining when prayer is neglected. Jesus woke early in the morning while the world was still silent to pray, showing us that the first voice we allow to shape our days should be God's voice, not anxiety, not pressure, not fear. And after long, exhausting days of healing the sick, teaching the crowds, and carrying the pain of others, he prayed again, revealing that prayer is where burdens are released and strength is restored. Before every major decision, Jesus prayed deeply, spending entire nights in communion with the Father before choosing his disciples, teaching us that obedience is not forced, but flows naturally when guidance is first sought in prayer rather than rushed through human reasoning. When crowds followed him and praised him, Jesus prayed so pride would not take root in his heart. And when religious leaders rejected him, accused him, and sought to destroy him, Jesus prayed so bitterness would not poison his spirit, showing us that prayer keeps us grounded whether life lifts us up or weighs us down. Jesus prayed publicly with gratitude, thanking the Father for what he was doing, teaching us to recognize God's hand in every blessing. And he prayed privately in secret places, reminding us that prayer is not about being seen by others, but about being known by God. He taught his followers to pray with sincerity rather than empty words, assuring them that the Father already knows their needs, yet still desires closeness, showing us that prayer is not about changing God's mind, but about allowing God to shape our hearts. In the wilderness, when hunger pressed hard and temptation offered shortcuts to power, Jesus stood firm through prayer and the Word, teaching us that dependence on God is greater than any temporary satisfaction. When grief filled the air at the tomb of Lazarus, Jesus prayed with tears, revealing that faith does not deny pain, but brings pain honestly before God. And in the Garden of Gethsemane, when obedience carried unbearable weight and surrender meant sacrifice, Jesus prayed with such intensity that his sweat became like drops of blood, showing us the deepest form of faith, a faith that says, "Not my will, but yours be done," even when the path ahead leads through suffering. This moment reveals that prayer does not remove the cost of obedience, but gives us the strength to endure it, teaching us that God's will is not always easy, but it is always purposeful. Jesus' prayer did not remove the cross, but it prepared his heart to carry it, reminding us that prayer does not always change our circumstances, but always transforms the one who prays. Even while hanging on the cross, surrounded by pain, mockery, and darkness, Jesus continued to pray, forgiving those who crucified him and entrusting his spirit into the Father's hands, proving that prayer does not disappear in suffering, but becomes even more powerful there. Through the prayer life of Jesus, we learn that obedience is sustained not by discipline alone, but by deep communion with God, that faith grows strongest, not in comfort, but in surrender, and that prayer is not a last option, but the first response. When we choose to follow his example and return daily to prayer, our hearts grow quieter, our faith grows steadier, our fear loosens its grip, and our obedience becomes an act of love rather than obligation. And slowly our lives begin to reflect the same peace, authority, humility, and quiet strength that marked the life of Jesus, drawing us closer to the Father and shaping us into faithful witnesses of his grace. Amen. And if this message strengthened your faith, gently like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and keep making prayer your first response, not your last.